did read the original 1,000 pages of these books in a day. It is currently 5:55 in the morning and I've been up for a little bit, but we're gonna get started on this reading marathon. I'm going to be starting Cruel Prince and then trying to finish the other two today as well. I have a couple incentives this morning to get me going on reading. I'm not gonna check my social media / pretty much just not pick up my phone until probably like 10 or 11 a.m. And then I have to drink this entire water bottle before I make myself a cup of coffee, so which is pretty normal for me, but since we are doing a reading marathon today, I really want some caffeine, so it's going to make me start chugging this. And it's pretty easy for me usually to not check my social media, but at the moment I have some TikToks that I posted yesterday that have about 500,000 views, which is a lot for me, and so I've been like really giddy and like checking them a lot and like reading the comments and whatnot, so I'm not gonna get on my phone for a while. So it is currently 5:58 in the morning and we are gonna get started. It's about 7:45 now and I'm about 80 pages in to Cruel Prince. So I'm gonna read for a bit longer because I don't want to pull out audiobooking so early. It's only 7:45 and I planned on doing some audiobook listening later when I want to get some stuff done. I have some like YouTube shorts and TikToks to post, so I'm gonna audiobook while I work on those later, but it's really early, so I kind of just want to like continue reading. I'm gonna try to get to 100 pages, then I'm gonna make myself a nice cup of coffee and we'll chat then. I'm over halfway through Cruel Prince now, but I am going to somebody's house as a favor to wait for a delivery. So I ended up getting the audiobook for Cruel Prince even though I didn't really want to because I didn't think I'd need it. I decided to get it so I can listen to the audiobook in the car on the way there and the way back if I don't finish it by the time the delivery is done, but I will also bring the second one in case I finish it and still have to wait there. I'm gonna go drive and listen to the audiobook, and I'm hoping to finish Cruel Prince within the next hour. Honestly, Cruel Prince is taking longer than I thought it would to get through, so I need to pick up the pace a little bit, and I'm hoping listening to the audiobook in the car will help me get through it. It's a little past 2 p.m. now and I just got home and I did finish Cruel Prince and I'm starting Wicked King, which is the second book in the trilogy. Unfortunately, this update comes a lot later than I wanted to, but with having to leave for a while, there was drive time, and on the way back home, my phone was dead, so I couldn't like start the next book on audio. My time is a little bit jumbled today. Unfortunately, it wasn't really the plan. I think because there is a lack of romance in Cruel Prince, it made it harder to read fast. Like, romances are always super easy to read. They're very fast paced, you know, whereas fantasy, there's a lot of world building which takes a while to get into, and I feel like a lot of the beginning of Cruel Prince is world building, but not in the typical fantasy way. It wasn't like overwhelming, it just took a while to get through because it's a lot less dialogue, a lot more explanatory blocks of text, which is totally fine. It just took a lot longer to read today than I thought, which just sucks for marathon purposes, but we're gonna continue on with Wicked King, and I'm hoping that that doesn't take too long to get through, but we'll see how that goes. My attention span has been not so great today, and I think a big part of it is starting this new like YouTube content creation journey and trying to be more present on like TikTok and also on YouTube Shorts. My brain is like racking ways of like video ideas and trying to be motivated to film them and everything. My brain is kind of like on overdrive for content creation right now, so it's hard to like make myself sit down and read, but I am going to continue on and hopefully I finish the 2 books today. It's been about 2 hours, maybe a little over 2 hours since I talked to you guys last about finishing the Cruel Prince and starting the Wicked King, and I'm almost 200 pages into the Wicked King. I'm probably like 180 pages, something like that. I've come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have been reading this series all day, from a little after I woke up to like when I go to sleep, because these books are taking so much longer to read than I'm used to. Not this one as much. I've read 100 pages an hour, but Cruel Prince took me all morning. And I've also been listening to more audiobooks because I have stuff I need to get done. So I've been listening to the audiobooks while I get stuff done, and those are slower. Even though I listen to them on 2x speed, they're still slower than I can read, so it kind of slows down the process a little bit. And before anyone says that audiobooks aren't reading, I highly disagree. As long as you're paying attention to it, like if you could write an essay on the audiobook like you could reading a book, it's the same thing. As long as you're paying attention to it and could give a good summary of what happened, then I think it's the exact same. I think where I'm at right now, I'm a little over halfway done with the book, so I'm hoping to finish it within like the next hour or two, and then I have the last one to read. And I'm just realizing that I'm gonna be up pretty late tonight reading this series probably. Sick. This is probably not a series that I'd recommend marathoning. The only reason I chose to marathon this instead of just reading it normally is because I always worry with series that I'm not gonna end up finishing it because I'm gonna start it and then something's gonna happen after I finish the first book and I'm gonna like not get to the second book for weeks, and then I'm gonna forget what happened and then just be like, I don't really want to pick up the next one, which has happened to me before. So I tend to not read series very often, even though I love them, because I like the continuation of the stories. I like to continue reading with the same characters. I just feel like I don't have the time to read series. And I'm also very determined to finish my January TBR, so I'm gonna go finish this. I'll talk to you guys when I finish. I know I'm sitting on the floor right now facing my desk, but this is really the only good lighting we've got going right now. It is 7:45 p.m. and I just finished The Wicked King. I still have Queen of Nothing to read, which is the shortest of them all, but literally by like 20 pages it's the shortest. It's not that much shorter than The Wicked King, but it's just crazy that it's taken me so long to read 2 books. Though there was a lot of interruptions today. The last readathon I did in 2022, I read 4 books in 12 hours. Granted, they weren't really high fantasy. One of them was like a dystopian novel, which probably took me like 5 hours to read. It was like the longest one out of all of them. But today's a little bit difficult, but I'm gonna go read The Queen of Nothing. Probably gonna be up really late, which is kind of gonna suck, but it's okay. We're here for a marathon and we're gonna fucking do it, no matter how long it takes. But I will say Wicked King, I think I liked a little bit more than Cruel Prince, possibly. I'll think about it though, because there's a little bit more romance in it, but don't get me wrong. This series is not about romance whatsoever. It's about fantasy. The romance is like little to none, but I am searching for it wherever I can. But I will say I didn't really enjoy the ending of Wicked King because, not because it was bad for any reason, it's just because the ending uses a tactic that like is one of my least favorite things in books, especially like romance books. It's like you have so much hope and love for characters, whether they're the main character or the side character, whoever, and then they take the hope and they throw it in a fucking well. They stomp on your hope and dreams into the ground. That's how the ending kind of felt for me in Wicked King, but like not in a bad way. So I'm gonna go read Queen of Nothing. It's probably gonna be like 8 something by the time I actually start reading it because filming takes a minute. But I wanted to chat with you guys, and just to repeat that Cruel Prince took up literally half my day. Wicked King I think I read in like 4.5 hours, 4 hours maybe. So let's see how fast I can read Queen of Nothing. Now that we're back in this terrible angle of my office, I just finished The Queen of Nothing. I finished it at like 11:45-ish. In case you're wondering, I read a total of 997 pages today. This one might have been my favorite of the trilogy, but I'm gonna sleep on my thoughts of these books for the night and finish the outro in the morning because I still don't know what I want to rate them, and I just want to like have time to chat with you guys about my thoughts about them, like actually go in a little bit deeper into my thoughts of the books. But it is, you know, gonna be midnight, so I would like to go to bed. I didn't plan on reading until the end of the day, so I'm gonna go hit the hay because it's late, and then I will chat about these with you guys in the morning, and I might also go pick up the novellas and read those. So good night. It is the next day, and while we're still on the floor, I did set my phone up so we could kind of look at something a bit better than my PC, but I was gonna go out and get The Lost Sisters and How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. Unfortunately, The Lost Sisters is only an ebook from what I can tell, and the other one is out of stock at all of the Barnes & Nobles near me, and I don't have a Kindle. I hope to buy myself one soon. I feel like I should. While I'm making vlogs and other kind of content, books are something I really want to focus on. I feel like it's a necessity if you want to be a book talker to have a Kindle, so I need to like get on buying myself one. They're just a little bit expensive, so I've been like, no, don't buy it. You don't need it. You have books. But I've borrowed like my sister's Kindle before, and I have the Kindle app on my phone, but I feel like it's like a rite of passage to buy an actual Kindle. So I've downloaded the 2 novellas on my iPad, and while I finished the original trilogy all of yesterday, I feel like it's not satisfying enough to leave the 2 novellas out of this video. So while I'm still going to title it that I finished the Cruel Prince series in a day, and the main focus is the trilogy, I'm still gonna go and read them and then share my thoughts on the entire series overall and chat about my ratings and all that. So let's just get into reading the novellas. I just finished reading The Lost Sisters. It's 100 pages. It took me about 30 minutes to finish. Not too bad. The Lost Sisters is 1.5 in the series. I think it would have made more sense to read it right after Cruel Prince. It tells stories from the Cruel Prince in the perspective of Taryn, which is Jude Duarte's, the main character's twin sister. And it's retelling events just from her perspective in an apology letter to Jude for the wrongdoing she did in the Cruel Prince towards her sister. I don't know that at the end of this that I will give this novella a rating, because I just don't feel like I have one for it, because I am not a big fan of Taryn's character, and I think that this novella makes me like her less, which may seem a little mean, but I just think that she was forgiven too easily for the way she treated Jude without giving too much up. As a novella, I think that it's pretty good. I just enjoy Holly Black's writing. I think that it explains some questions we have about Taryn's actions from The Cruel Prince, and I would recommend reading this one. If you're going to read The Cruel Prince, I would recommend reading the novellas where they're supposed to go in the story. This is supposed to be right after Cruel Prince, before Wicked King. And since I read the entire series yesterday, I think it's okay that I'm reading them afterwards because I didn't forget anything that happened. Whereas if you were reading these in a more normal spaced out time, like over a week, over a month, over a couple months, you might forget these events that happened in The Cruel Prince because they are significant to the story, but they're also not the most action-packed, crazy things ever. But now I'm gonna read How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. This novella is 192 pages, so it's gonna be double the length of The Lost Sisters. This novella seems more of something up my alley rather than a side character's point of view on things that have already happened. So let's get into reading it. It is the next day. I think it's time we chat about this trilogy. I also finished How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories last night after I finished The Lost Sisters, but I didn't want to film this ending yesterday because I wanted to just sit with the books. I'm gonna be honest, this series kind of took me by surprise. I didn't think that after reading the first one 2 days ago, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna love this story. But after finishing all 5 books in total, including the 2 novellas, this series is amazing. And I think that I'm gonna be a little heartbroken over this story for a while. It's one of those books that it just kind of takes a piece of you with it because you get so involved with the story, you get involved with the characters, you get involved with the setting, the world, you just feel like you're in it. And then when you're pulled out of it, when you finish it, it's a little heartbreaking in a way, and these books are exactly that. In Cruel Prince, you're following Jude Duarte trying to navigate the world of Fae as a human, and she's trying to fit in, she's trying to do whatever she can to show up to the people who think less of her because she's a human. It is all about the mess of the Fae politics. There's a lot of political intrigue, and There is a lot of world building in The Cruel Prince, and it is a very necessary part of the series. It wasn't my all-time favorite out of the series, but it is really good and I really enjoyed it. It starts to set up the romance that you're looking for. And while this series is marketed on TikTok as an enemies to lovers, which it kind of is. They are enemies and then a love blooms, right? But these stories are fantasy through and through. They are not romance. They're not romance centered. And for them not having a lot of romance in them, I enjoyed them way more than I thought I would. As somebody that is a romance fanatic, I read romance all the time. I love rom-coms. I just love love. And I was going into this thinking I was going to be disappointed by the lack of romance, but it is done so well, and I give big props to Holly Black for this series. In The Wicked King, we're still following Jude Duarte, but you get even more of that political intrigue, the messiness, the complex relationships, betrayal, grief, just twists and turns. The ending of this book, it just has you guessing over and over again. You're not really sure what's going to happen or how it's going to end out. All of the events that are happening and the things that are going wrong, you don't know how they're going to resolve. As somebody who can often guess what's going to happen, and I had a lot of guesses of what was happening in The Cruel Prince and how it was going to resolve in this one and in the third book, but they didn't happen how I thought, or like not at least not exactly how I thought they were going to happen, and that just pulls me to the series even more. I like to not be able to guess. I like to be surprised. And then we have The Queen of Nothing, which might be my favorite in the series. But I honestly don't know. I feel like these books blend together in one giant novel because the story is so continuous. It's hard to pick a favorite, but I read through this book so much faster than the other ones, and I was just eating it up. I was ready to see what the ending was. I was reading to get to the pieces, the little chunks of romance. I was reading to get to those, and this one also has you guessing the plot twist. It's just, you don't know exactly what's gonna happen unless you're really good at guessing. I usually am, but this series did have me guessing quite a few times, and I really enjoyed that factor, and it was a really good ending to the trilogy. And for the novellas, The Lost Sisters was something that I enjoyed reading, and I think that it just continued to add to the depth of the story. The Lost Sisters is written in a perspective of a letter to Jude. You read it as if you were Jude, and it's written by Jude's twin sister Taryn. And while I don't think it was a necessary addition, you do get to see more of her character and see how she felt about the things she did and how the story played out from her point of view. But it didn't necessarily make me like her character anymore. I wasn't a big fan of the twin sister, but I'm sure that's a pretty universal opinion of people that have read these books. But it was still a good read. And then we have How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories, and that novella, it was just nice to see because it's short stories of Cardan growing up. It's throughout his life, pieces from when he was younger, present time, even in the middle, like in pieces of Cruel Prince. And it's cool to see his character. It was written in third point of view, but in Cardan's life instead of Jude's, which was a little unfortunate. I was hoping that it was going to be a first-person Cardan, and while we didn't get to see the inner workings of his mind in a first-person perspective, we still got to see more of Cardan, and I really enjoyed that. I think it added to his character. We kind of learn how he became the person he is in Cruel Prince, and I think that that's just really cool to see. I would recommend the novellas on top of the trilogy because I think just having more of the characters, having more of the world, and learning more about side characters can really just add to the setting as a whole. But overall, I think that in a whole, I'm going to rate this a 5-star series. I think it's difficult to rate each book in this series individually because they're such a continuation of each other, whereas other series, the sequel can be a different person in the story's perspective. It can be a new story entirely just with characters that are in the same world, like the Dreamland Billionaires or the Twisted series. This is like one giant book. Like this could be one giant book and it would feel normal. So it's hard to rate these individually because Cruel Prince sets the scene for the rest of them. There's a lot of world building, but I don't think that it should be rated lower just because it sets the tone. Whereas this one, you start to get into the plot a bit more, but you're not seeing as many high stakes. And then you get to The Queen of Nothing, which is more high stakes but not as much world building. So I feel like it is an amazing series, and that's why it's a 5-star altogether. But I feel like each book is necessary to set up the next one or end off the other ones. And so I'm not going to rate the books individually on their own. But some of my final thoughts are that I love Jude Duarte's character. She is a powerful, feisty lady who doesn't have to rely on the main male character to make her something. She's already an amazing character from the get-go, and I think she's one of the most beloved female leads of a lot of fantasy novels, and I can see why. I absolutely adore her, and it is perfect timing for me to read these because apparently on March 5th is when Holly Black's new book comes out, and it's of a character from these novels, and we also get to see Jude and Cardan, and I can't believe I just learned about that right before filming this section of the video. I didn't know there was another book coming out. I probably would have waited until closer to March to read these, but I'm still so ecstatic that the story is kind of continuing, even though it's not going to be focused on Jude and Cardan, I don't believe. I'm still so excited for it. This entire video has just made me start loving Holly Black. I like her writing a lot, and it's perfect because I have Tithe, which is another Holly Black book that I've had sitting on my shelf for months now. I haven't read it yet, but I know what's going on my February TBR now. And this, which I learned before filming this segment, is also part of this world. It's not Jude and Cardan, but it is another character that we do see in this series. And so I'm going to eat this one up as soon as possible. But I do think that is going to end us off for reading Cruel Prince in a day, even though this video took place over many days. I did read the original 1,000 pages of these books in a day. So I appreciate you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more like this, make sure to go subscribe, comment down below, tell me if you've read this series, what you thought of it, and I will see you guys in the next one.